Good morning. This is Norma Cowie for Wednesday Norma Talks. I was going to say our Sunday thought. I'm on the wrong day. That's the kind of morning it's been. What day is it? Where have I been? Where am I going? And what am I doing? Because this Wednesday is so close to April, 2 more days is April 1st, Fool's Day. I decided that I would do the reading for North America for April today. Maybe I should have waited for 2 more days, but anyway, I'm not doing a Norma Talks on that morning, and then otherwise we're halfway through the first week. It seems if I waited to next week, and it kind of left me a little of sorts when I looked at this, because the last few months the readings have been really what I considered positive. But let me put it up and let me share it with you. Where is it? Here it is. And you can see it as I go through and talk about it. You know, one of the elements of tarot is that I really like is that when I pick up the symbols to inform the question in my mind about what I want to look at, what I want to read, is I feel the symbology. And this morning when I picked them up, they were really heavy. So I shuffled them and I did it probably about 3 times, but the heaviness stayed. And then finally, I really got myself in the constant way, the way I like to be, which often I could snap into it like in 2 seconds, and snapped into it and put them out. So let's go through the symbols here and remembering. So it just shows in the beginning how we're all looking out to the future, which is absolutely true. We're looking at the future, looking at where, what happens, all our plans, everything we're wanting to create and we're wanting to do. And then we move to the King of Cups. Well, remember, to me, the court cards to me are attitudes. So here we've got the King, which is always the supreme over the emotional. So this is where the emotions come in. But before I want to go in here, look at this partner right next door is the Queen of Cups, who to me is all about imagination and creating things, because that cup looks nothing like this cup. It looks nothing at all like it. So it's like when the mind gets in there and she doesn't see anything else but. So what I'm seeing here, I would say up to around the 6th and 7th of April, at least, once the first couple of days is over, there's a lot of emotional things coming out. Now, it could be emotional information. It could be information that you're not sure of, but it's, and sort of what I find with the King is that it ignores the emotions. It's like it suppresses the emotion and wants to sort of stay above the feeling level, whereas the Queen goes right into it, then blows everything up out of proportion. So one of the elements what we're seeing here, at least maybe to the 7th, 8th for sure, is a lot of conjecture, a lot of not wanting to deal, not wanting to hear or to experience what is being said and what is really coming forth. And then we go to the 8 of Swords here. So this is, to me, a tense, and sometimes time is a little blurry in there, but it's like these are issues. And although one of the things I love about this particular symbol, for those of you that are into the tarot, is the castle in the background. That's the castle of dreams. And see how close she really is, but she's bound up in all the issues that she's created over here in the Queen. So all this thinking about what ifs and maybes and perhapses, and is this right? Is this not right? And now it's like, that's where we're still being hounded by it. And we're not looking at what's really there. We're not looking at what's really there. So I think for us, looking at maybe mainstream, the media, what people are saying, what we're reading in all the different venues, is to really take a good look beyond all the emotional reactions that are going on. This is a very emotional reaction in here. And then there's a breath of fresh air. And I really get that from the 10th to about the 13th, 14th. I just love the star because it's like, talks about personal power, it's about personal awareness, and it's about being connected. And so there's a sense of balance that comes back into the world. And I think for a few days, maybe even stretching into a week, I don't think it stretches to a week, I would say 3 to 4 days. It's like everything comes into balance, some clarity. Unfortunately, it doesn't last. And it doesn't last because here we then go over to the Five of Cups, which is a sad and a little bit depressing, because a lot of what the expectations are have been dashed. So again, we get into, oh my goodness, what's going on? Well, again, one of the things I love about the symbol, it just says turn around, because what you want will take you, just like the Eight of Swords, that the castle of dreams, the goal, the wherewithal, the knowledge is there behind. This one shows you need to have a different perspective. Let go of the disappointments, let go of the, you might say, hurts, pains, anxieties, etc. Let go of what there and turn around and look at what really happening. This is the only symbol in the whole tarot deck that has a bridge across the river of life. It's easy to get, but you need to change your perspective. If you do not change your perspective, and I think this is very pivotal. So what are we looking at? We're looking around the 20s to the 23rd of April for a pivotal change, hopefully. This is where I would hope people make the change. They let go of the disappointment. They let go of not liking what they've been hearing. But what it shows is that they're not going to do that. They're going to get more unsure, more defensive, very defensive, because we come into the King of Swords. Unless logic appears, the King of Swords is always defensive, but he likes logic. So in the logic of the moment, he will change. But I don't know. This feels so stuck. This whole kind of month with a little bit of clarity just feels stuck. And as I say, when I pick the cards up, very, very heavy. And so consequently, here we end up towards right at the end of the month of April, looking back in the past, reviewing the past, looking and living saying, well, I remember when, or look at this, or look at that, not looking ahead where we need to as we move into the summer. Because mostly, I know here in Canada, mostly as we move in the summer, we have actually more freedom than we've had for some time. And the US is sort of, I think, believes similar in most cases, unless something happens that shifts everything around. Doesn't show something else happening. It's news, it's awareness, it's coming from different sources, and it's how the populace works. Because, and I'm going to come back to this particular reading in a minute, but because I actually went and I sort of quickly looked at a few more symbols just to make sure, which I haven't got on the screen, to make sure to see like what I'm seeing here is, and it's the same thing. Worry, not seeing what's going on, surprises. This particular reason does not show too much about surprises, but it says choices that need to be made. And I can see that in a sense of choice. We have just about almost every symbol here, one which we could say has a choice. We choose to feel the feelings that we feel. We choose to stop imagining and look at what is. I call it isness. What is it? Because then we know what we're really dealing with. We choose to stay bound in what we don't like rather than looking at what is there. I like the star. There's no problem there. We choose in the Five of Cups to let go of the past and look at the future. We choose in the Seven of, it's the Seven of Wands. I had a mental blank at a moment. We choose to be not having to defend ourselves, but to listen. We choose in the King of Swords to, again, listen and not be just straight off defensive. And in the Six of Cups, we choose whether we stay looking at the past or we look at the future. This is not very future oriented, except for the very first symbol, the Three of Wands, showing where we're heading. So if we look at this in a different way, is that we look out to the future rather than the past, because the past is gone. And we need to plan for where we're heading in the future. This goes individually or country-wise or whatever. When we look here, again, by blowing things up in our portion, sometimes we're acting defensively or defending, whether it's honor, whether it's whatever you think, where maybe we can take a different stance and a different awareness because you're coming off the past. And actually, because of the Queen. And remember, these are this is my concepts of how these work. Because somebody else will be reading and say, oh, I don't get that. And that's true, but this is how I get it. And then if we go to the sort of the right-hand line, it says, be balanced. Listen and be aware, because the past is the past. And so I really see in the alignment of this that unless people choose to accept their past, come to a time period of where they are and where they're heading, they get stuck. So I'm just going to stop the share because I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about choice. Now, every day you get up, believe it or not, you make a choice. How are you going to approach your day? Many of us have our schedules of what we do and when, how to show up, and we organize that. Many go to work. Many are not at work right now. But also, too, we have a choice of how we are in their inner being. We have a choice as to what we want to perceive. Do we balance our material world with our inner world, our spiritual world, our philosophy world? Does our philosophy even work into our regular world, into the world that we're in? What is our philosophy? Some people have no idea what their philosophy is. They just go through the motions. Yet, there is such an array of philosophical elements that you can take. And everyone's path is their path. Everyone's path is in the direction of where they want to be and what they want to create. What are your goals? If you don't have goals, I'm going to make an analogy because I just see a picture in my head of an old sailing ship. When you're on an old, we'll say an old sailing ship with sails, because they're pretty to look at in the water, they have a destination. They leave their port of where they left, and they follow the winds and the currents and everything, and to go to their destination. Well, what they have to do to get there? They have to tack. They have to go one way, and then the winds, and then they're back, and then they come. Always with the destination, which is the goal in mind. We humans have lost that. We have lost that our goal is they think we should be just there in a straight line because we can pick up the phone and talk and we're there. I can talk to you in my room, and you are wherever you are. If you want to tune in, you can hear me, you can see me. But life is not like that. Life is not a direct line. And that's where a lot of people move into depression, anxiety, frustration, building up thoughts in their heads about all sorts of other things than what is their next step. I teach a thing I call the first step principle. And I know other people have taught the idea using that title. I didn't know that other people use that title when I first began teaching this, but it made sense to me. You have a goal, and that's important to know. What is that goal? Because that's where you're heading. That's like the boat. We're going to the port. We're going to go leave London. We'll say leave London. We're going to go to Cape Town. We know what the trip. We know we have to go where we have to go, but we don't go like we do in an airplane today. You would have to really maneuver with the winds and with the seasons and all sorts of things. So, okay, we have our goal. We step out. First step is a really important point. Once you figure, you do your first step. Once you're at that step, you do another. The next step becomes your first step again, because you may have to evaluate. You may have to change things. I did a lot of organization in back in the day in my life, and some things didn't go very well to plan. You'd have to be very flexible, very fast sometimes. In the meantime, you would do everything the way you had your procedures to do to get you to where you wanted to go. But it's no use worrying about the 8th step when you're still on the 2nd. What you do is you do the 2nd step, keeping your goal in mind. You do your next, because each step becomes the first step. And if you have to be flexible, you need to be flexible. And that's what I find in today's culture, is that people do not understand often flexibility. It's kind of like it's this way or no way. The old saying, this way or the highway or whatever. Life is not like, life was never meant to be like that. Like we get on a plane and when I fly home to Auckland, it's 14 hours later from Vancouver, I'm in Auckland. My grandparents left London to go, ended up in Sydney, Australia, and it took a long time on a boat to get there. Time has, for us in this modern age, has compressed things, but the human condition hasn't always kept up with what time has created through their beautiful and wonderful inventions. Makes life easier, but in some ways it inhibits us because we get caught up of how it should be. And I find this a lot in my transformation work, that people have a precept of how life is supposed to be. We watch TV shows, we listen to podcasts, we watch different visions like this on YouTube or wherever, because there's lots of platforms now. And we all present that this is how life's supposed to be. And you look at your life and it's not like that. And so then you think it's you. And you beat yourself up, you get depressed, you get miserable, and you get locked in what we see in a lot of this month's reading, where we're not really looking ahead and making decisions and awarenesses based on where we know we want to be or how we want to be, where we want to go. Just accepting things as someone says, this is how it's supposed to be, doesn't always work. In the olden times, and I'm talking way, way older, people and the indigenous people know this because it's still very much part of their culture. They would sit around and they would discuss and talk about it. And then the head, the chief or whatever would say, yeah, but they would listen. What I find today, very often, people aren't listening. The people are, I read, people are on the streets. We have truck convoys. The uppers, the chiefs, are not listening. They're not listening. But we and ourselves need to be flexible. We need to understand where our lives are, where we're heading, where we're going. And we listen to ourselves. And where do we hear ourselves? Not just only in the mental and our emotion, because our body will let us know what it likes and what it doesn't like. I was sitting this morning watching a show which was recorded last night called Canada's Got Talent. It's new here. We all know America's Got Talent. We've seen that. And this is Canada. This was the second week. And there was a young troupe of young dancers from Edmonton who had come, and they had done this dance about anxiety. They are 16 and one 16-year-old and two 14-year-olds talking about anxiety. Now, it brought back for me, remembering, I went to work at 15. My dad informed me I was 15 now and I could go to work. I wanted to be educated. Now, you're a good woman, you're going to get married, they'll take care of you, old thinking, but still, you go to work. So at 15, I went to work. At 16, I suffered depression. Why? I wasn't happy. I wasn't doing anything I really loved, except on Saturdays, I got to play some field hockey, as we called it down there, grass hockey. And I enjoyed that because I was a sports person. We do not recognize how effective the lockdowns, the masks have affected our psychologicalness. And I don't know, and I'm looking at this reading and I'm just seeing pain everywhere and hurt everywhere. And I realized from this these young trio of people who have been bullied because they love to dance. I danced when I was young. I danced up to from, I think, 14. I had to make a choice, but I chose field hockey, which I played right up to the day I left to come to Canada at 18. Life changes. It's variable. And we need people to listen. We need to listen more to what we're saying, the words of what we're saying. And if we live in our little square world of how it's supposed to be, as I say, it's not that long ago that we had to sit and listen. Because if we didn't, the people would get upset and do something else. We would travel, tacking here and there in these sailing ships. And then there were steamships, but even they had to battle certain things. And now we have humongous ships on the ocean that carries people around. We have, as I said, airplanes that I can get from Vancouver, BC to Auckland, New Zealand in 14 hours, flying at 300, I think it's 350,000 feet above the earth. I also had one thing that comes in before I begin to close this off, is that I was listening to a talk, and it had a whole lot of information that I had inklings of before, but he tied a lot of things together. And one thing he said, the vulnerability of us as humans, because if anything happened to our sun, we would not be here. Now, I happen to believe in the soul goes on and other planets and dimensions and things like that, but many people do not. But there has been talk about trying to stop the sun coming here. This is a planet. This is a living planet. This planet goes through all sorts of cycles. We are in a cosmos where we're moving around as we move around all through all sorts of different stresses and energies and things like that. And one of the ones we're going through right now is like, and yes, it affects our climates, but the earth adjusts. The earth adjusts. We humans do not adjust because we think it should look like this. And we have to open up that and recognize that as humans, we have to be flexible with what is naturally here, I think. What is naturally acceptance and love of each other, not the persecution or the put down or the ridicule of each other. I am concerned with what I see here this month. I will admit it. I look at it and I do believe we have choice. We have choice all the way along. And I also believe that if many of us gather together in communion, in honest conversation, not protecting and not sort of fighting, all things can be resolved easily. But what do we need for that? Is we need to listen. We need to choose to listen. We need to choose to look at our lives and make decisions when we have our goals, but to make decisions for the moment. Not what may be, not what could, but what is. I know when I'm doing a lot of work, I'll say to someone, I call it isness. What is? It's isness. Look at your isness. Look what's really happening. Not what your imagination says, but what you can see and perceive, and open up your borders, open up the stretch so that you can see in another alternative. And I think that's what I have to say this particular Wednesday as we look towards April coming. I would love you to enjoy your lives and make sure you take stock where you are, take stock where you want to go, and know step by step. There's a song, isn't it? Step by step, day by day. That's the key. Step by step, I'm just putting my cards together. I have them on the table in front of me. Step by step, day by day, you go forward. I wish you well. Have fun. I will be back on Sunday and again on Monday night. For those of you that haven't checked out my Monday mental mind treatments, it's a way I have of speaking, a sort of a prayer, I guess you could say. I don't know quite how to explain it that way, except it is a type of prayer. It's how I learned it as, but it is a way of being able to adjust your mind, to have you look at a different perspective and an awareness, and it's putting that thought out there to create. And I want you to, and I also want to thank you for, and remember, subscribing helps, ringing the bell helps so that you're notified when I'm on live. And also to the shares and likes are tremendous. Bless you. Thank you. And I shall see you on Sunday. Bye.